I look at the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this one is honestly pretty interesting. It started before Disney Plus was a thing. The show started several years back. I don't remember off the top of my head when exactly the show started. I got it here. Okay, September 2013 is when it started, and then it ended in 2020. And I think 2021 was when Disney Plus was a thing. I don't remember 100%, but the point is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pre-Disney Plus. Now, unlike either Cloak and Dagger's Runaways or the Netflix shows, this one started off being more connected to the MCU than those shows ever were. Yes, it's true that none of the Marvel Studios movies ever referenced anything from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and even the people at Marvel Studios made statements where they basically said, yeah, we're not following what's going on in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That show is doing its own thing. We don't really care what happens in there. But you look at the first season especially, and it's very much a follow-up to Captain America the Winter Soldier, because it's showing you the fallout of that what happened in that movie. It's showing you what the ramifications are of Hydra's infiltration of S.H.I.E.L.D. becoming public knowledge. What happens to S.H.I.E.L.D. agents once the truth of the organization comes out, once the organization stops being known as a reputable agency of the federal government, instead becomes known as a terrorist organization. Then in season 2, there are references to Avengers Age of Ultron in there. They explain why it is that the Avengers knew to go to the compound we see them at the beginning of Age of Ultron, and then we see how it is that Nick Fury managed to hide a helicarrier. It's the same one we saw at the end of Age of Ultron. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started off being at least somewhat connected to the MCU, but then by the time you get to season 3, but especially seasons 4 and 5, the show was doing its own thing. It stopped really referencing the rest of the franchise, other than some minor references here and there, but it was doing its own thing. And then especially when you got to season 6, the show completely ignored the end of Infinity War. In season 5, there actually are some references to the events of that movie, but then by the time you get to season 6, it's clear that the creators of the show didn't know what was going to happen at the end of Infinity War, so they decided to just do their own thing. And then you get to season 7, and it's a good wrap up to the show itself, but by that point, the show 100% was just doing its own thing. It no longer had any connection to the rest of the MCU. I mean, yeah, you have time travel in there. Of course, there was time travel in Endgame, but it's completely done differently in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The method that's used for time travel, the rules are definitely not the same. So even by the time you got to season 3, aside from some minor references here and there that really don't mean much, a character will reference that the Sokovia Accords have happened, for example, and I mean, yeah, that affects things in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. itself, but you watch the movies and it's clear that the people at Marvel Studios were not working together whatsoever with the people at Marvel Television. It was two separate teams that weren't collaborating at all. So the idea that all this stuff we see in seasons 4 through 7 happened in the MCU at the same, just like the stuff in the movies happened, it doesn't make sense anymore. So at that point, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just stopped being canon, started doing its own thing. I'm a big fan of this show. To make something clear, in this video I'm just talking about whether or not Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually canon.